She was young, full of dreams, and just beginning to carve out her place in the world. But one late summer night in California, 23-year-old Dalene Carlson vanished into the darkness, never to return alive. What followed was a desperate search, a twisted betrayal, and a crime that shocked an entire community. Before we dive in, make sure you hit subscribe to Noir Crime 88. We upload new true crime stories every second day, bringing you the darkest mysteries and the shocking truths behind them. Don't miss what comes next. When a loved one disappears, time becomes the enemy. Every hour feels like a lifetime, every unanswered call a dagger of dread.
But why take somebody else's life because of selfishness? You know, he was mad.
Murder in the commission of a rape, kidnapping in the commission of rape, and then the enhancement of personal use of a firearm, which alone carries 25 to life.
The case of Dalene Carlson, those hours turned into days, and the days turned into weeks, until the truth finally surfaced. Her story is not just about a tragic end. It's about trust misplaced, red flags ignored, and a predator hiding in plain sight. This is the heartbreaking case of Dalene Carlson, a small-town girl whose life was stolen before it truly began. Dalene Carlson was born in Idaho, into a close-knit family who adored her bright personality and adventurous spirit. She had a warm smile that drew people in, a bubbly laugh, and an eagerness to experience life to the fullest. Those who knew her said she was loyal, the kind of person who would do anything for a friend. In 2011, at 23, she moved to Stockton, California, hoping for new opportunities. Life in Stockton was different from the small-town comfort of Idaho, but Dalene was ready to explore. She quickly made new friends and began working toward building a life for herself in the Central Valley. She loved music, going out with friends, and meeting new people. But beneath her fun-loving nature was also a deep longing for stability, a desire for something lasting in a world that often felt uncertain. That longing would ultimately put her in the orbit of a man who seemed charming at first, but who would later be revealed as dangerous beyond measure. It was Saturday, August 6, 2011. Dalene went out to enjoy the summer night with friends. They visited bars in Stockton, moving from one lively spot to another. Witnesses later said she was in good spirits, laughing, dancing, and soaking up the atmosphere. But as the night wore on, Dalene crossed paths with a man named Robert "Bobby" Brown, a man she'd been seen with before. To some, he appeared friendly and laid back. But behind closed doors, Brown had a reputation for being controlling, jealous, and volatile. At some point in the early hours of the morning, Dalene left with Brown. That was the last time her friends saw her alive. When she didn't show up the next day, concern quickly turned to panic. Her family, who spoke to her regularly, couldn't reach her. Calls went unanswered. Messages remained unopened. For a young woman who was always connected and social, this silence was deafening. When Dalene failed to appear for work and stopped communicating altogether, her family reported her missing. Flyers began circulating. Social media posts flooded timelines. The police launched an official search, but as with many missing young adults, they initially treated it with caution. Her family, however, knew something was terribly wrong. Dalene wasn't the type to just disappear. She had no history of running away, no signs of depression, no reason to cut ties with everyone she loved. As the days passed, Stockton was gripped by fear. Volunteers scoured neighborhoods. Strangers shared her picture online. Her smiling face, brown hair framing her youthful features, was suddenly everywhere, a symbol of a life suspended in uncertainty. But amid the chaos, one name kept surfacing again and again: Bobby Brown. Robert "Bobby" Brown was a familiar figure in Stockton's nightlife. He wasn't a stranger to trouble. In fact, he had a criminal history that raised serious red flags, drug-related offenses, accusations of violence, and a personality that flipped quickly from charming to aggressive. Investigators discovered that Dalene had been seen with him multiple times in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Friends recalled her mentioning his name, though often with hesitation. On the night she vanished, witnesses confirmed she left with Brown. Police brought him in for questioning. He didn't deny knowing Dalene, but his story was murky. He claimed they had parted ways and that he had no idea where she went afterward. But investigators weren't convinced. Brown's demeanor was off, too casual, too dismissive. Forensic teams searched his vehicle and his property, looking for any trace of Dalene. What they found would slowly unravel his story. For nearly 6 weeks, Dalene's loved ones lived in limbo. Each day brought new speculation, new rumors, and crushing uncertainty. Vigils were held, candles flickering against the California night sky as family and friends prayed for her safe return. Her family pleaded with the public for information. Her sister spoke through tears, describing how life without Dalene felt like walking through a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Behind the scenes, investigators pressed harder on Brown. Phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements began to corner him. But without a body, charges were difficult to pursue. Then, on September 7, 2011, the heartbreaking breakthrough came. The discovery. In a rural area near Escalon, about 20 miles from Stockton, police found human remains buried in a shallow grave. DNA testing confirmed the worst: it was Dalene. Her body showed signs of foul play, consistent with homicide. She hadn't simply wandered off. She had been taken, silenced, and hidden. For her family, the confirmation was shattering. Hope dissolved into grief, and the reality of what had been done to her was almost too much to bear. For investigators, though, the discovery gave them the evidence they needed to move forward. Robert "Bobby" Brown was arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. The case that had haunted Stockton for weeks was now moving toward justice. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture: Brown had lured Dalene into his car that night. Whether through coercion or force, he prevented her from leaving. At some point, he killed her and buried her body in a remote location, believing it would never be found. His motive? A twisted mix of obsession, control, and rage. To Brown, Dalene was not a person but an object, someone he thought he could dominate, and when she resisted, he eliminated her. In the courtroom, the details of Dalene's final moments came into focus. Forensic experts testified about the state of her remains, while investigators laid out the damning evidence against Brown. Witnesses recounted the nights they saw them together, the unease Dalene expressed, and the last time she was seen alive. Brown, maintaining his innocence, tried to deflect blame. But the mountain of evidence was impossible to ignore. For Dalene's family, attending the trial was an act of courage. They sat through graphic testimony, forced to relive the horror of her final hours, all while staring at the man responsible. In the end, the jury reached a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping. Brown was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice had been served, but the victory was bittersweet. No sentence could bring Dalene back. No verdict could erase the pain of her absence. Her family described her as the light of their lives, a young woman with limitless potential. They worked tirelessly to honor her memory, reminding the world that she was more than a victim: she was a daughter, a sister, a friend. Dalene's case also shined a harsh spotlight on the dangers faced by young women in nightlife settings, the importance of listening to intuition, and the reality that predators often hide in plain sight. For the community of Stockton, the case left scars. But it also left a legacy of awareness and a reminder that justice, though delayed, is worth fighting for. The story of Dalene Carlson is one of trust betrayed and a life cut short by violence. It is also a testament to the resilience of family and community in the face of tragedy. Her memory lives on, not in the shadow of her murder, but in the love of those who refuse to let her be forgotten. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the heartbreaking case of Dalene Carlson. If you found this story important, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Noir Crime 88, and turn on the notification bell. We bring you new true crime stories every second day, stories that deserve to be heard. Together, we can make sure the victims are never forgotten.